this I had no idea about, that patent laws apparently are changing. Patent attorney specialist and Professor John Rizvi is here. Hi, John.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you. It is not, well, patent laws are changing too, but today it's really the copyright expirations that's gotten everybody, up in a storm with Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse copyrights expiring on Monday.
Well, I had no idea they were expiring. Does that mean that we have to have a funeral for the mice?
Actually, in fact, the opposite. So when the copyrights expire, and this is, just so we know, it's not there's several different versions of Mickey Mouse that's protected. We're talking about the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse that's the iconic Mickey Mouse that you see on a steamboat, like whistling, and it's a black and white Mickey Mouse. That's
right.
Those copyrights are expiring, and when I say there's no funeral, usually when the copyrights expire, they become part of the public domain. So Disney no longer is going to have exclusive rights to that version, which means instead of a funeral, which is when something goes away, I think we're probably going to see a lot more of that version of Mickey Mouse because there's no royalties to be paid. There's no licensing that you have to get from Disney anymore. So I think we're going to see a lot more of Mickey Mouse after Monday instead of less.
So let's say there's an image online someone sees, and then they post it online, and then they get sued by the person whose image he says or she says, well, that's my image, I copyright that image, but there's no way for the person to know that image was copyrighted in the first place.
So, there's anything that's copyrighted. The typical advice is you need to have a copyright notice on images. So a lot of images, you'll see a C with a circle around it, or you'll have the words U.S. copyright or something to that extent, or copyright reserved. You'll see an indication. If you don't see an indication, it can help possibly prevent punitive damages and and payment of attorney fees, and then there's some benefit to a claim of innocent infringement, but it still does not give you the right to do that. It certainly reduces the pain of infringing someone's copyright if they haven't properly put notice on their work.
Well, if there is no copyright, that little C with a circle around it, I assume you're talking about. So if that's not there and someone uses that inadvertently, they can still be sued, as I understand it.
Yeah, correct. And one important distinction as well is there's a separate set of rights, and that's why patents, trademarks, and copyrights have to be looked at differently. Patents protect inventions, so we're not talking about an invention here. It's like a fictional character, a drawing. But trademarks protect branding, and I just want to make clear that the brand rights that Disney has to Mickey Mouse are not expiring on Monday. So I don't want people out there starting to use the Mickey Mouse or the logo with the Mickey Mouse ears or any of that stuff that Disney has. That's not what's expiring. What's expiring is the original Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse is expiring January 1st of 2024.
Right, which goes back many, many years. That was the original, I think, Mickey Mouse, because I once watched a documentary about Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse and how it all came about, so I remember that. But what is more likely to be used over and over is something a bit more contemporary. Is that protected? So if I copy and paste on my Facebook page, or if, let's say, someone has a blog and they copy and paste Snoopy, let's even get away from Disney. Is that okay to do, or are you potentially in trouble for doing it?
No, if they're under copyright protection, then you absolutely could be in trouble and infringing for doing it. When you said something more recent, the more recent version of Mickey Mouse, and that's the version everyone knows with white gloves and Mickey has the red shorts, that is not expiring this Monday. But that's not too far off itself. That's January 1st of 2036. So a little over a dozen years from now, a decade from now, you'll have that version of Mickey Mouse in the public domain as well. So currently, you can use Mickey Mouse, but don't put not the color version with white gloves and red shorts. Just make sure it's the original. When you said it's very old, it's 95 years ago is when that work was first published. So we're talking about a 95-year old copyright that's expiring.
Okay, but my question is more broad than that. I understand about that one Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse, but what about other cartoon characters that you're just copying and pasting in your own social media? Maybe you have a social media presence of 20 people, but maybe you have a social media presence of 200,000, 20 or more. Can you do that, and how? I mean, people do that every single day, don't they?
They do, and a lot of it is it's not enforced, right? So a lot of times you see someone that's doing that, you don't see any repercussions, and most of the time there's not going to be, because unfortunately there isn't a sufficient like damages, and perhaps the deep pockets aren't there. If it's a small post and it's somebody that's doing it without commercial intent, they're not making money off of it. There's also fair use defenses to copyright infringement, and there is to the extent it's free speech. If you have commentary regarding these copyrighted characters, then it may not be infringing. It may not be seen as copyright infringement. There's a bunch of factors the court will look at as to whether you have a defense to copyright infringement under fair use. So there are fair use exceptions. For example, if it's educational use, then that may help a court see it as fair use. And if there's no money being made, if there's no charge for those images, then of course that tends to support an exception to copyright infringement for fair use. But the fact that it's done and without repercussions, that you don't know when when selectively somebody is going to try to enforce. So I can't. That's the risk. It's almost like people cross the street every day without looking both ways, and nothing happens. It's just it's a risk. It's just what if you don't look both ways and there happens to be a car there? Now you're in trouble, and that's kind of the issue with this copyright infringement of individuals. I think you're not talking about like huge, companies, multinational corporations doing it, but John Doe who wants to take an image offline that he's found, put it on their website, for example, or do a Facebook post. Most of the time, like realistically, the chances of any repercussions are low, but not for the one person that gets slapped with a suit. And there have been cases of.
Well, I'm not sure they're that low anymore, because I know there are computer programs that actually search for, you know what I'm talking about. They search for this stuff. And here you have someone who might be 85 years old, I don't know, who copied and pasted something on her Facebook page innocently, and here she's getting slapped with the threat of a lawsuit. And then she has to hire a lawyer to defend. I mean, it seems ridiculous to me, and just a money-making scheme. And in fact, what I know is that some people will put something out there not copyrighted, and then copyright it after people use it. And then they will claim, and apparently that's legal to do.
Yeah, so I mean, you have to be able to support that you're the author, but I mean, to your point, it's expensive to try to defend yourself against these suits. So even if you're in the right, it can be problematic. There have been instances, as you mentioned, of some person who has no intention of infringing. They're not even aware that it's a copyrighted work, and suddenly find themselves on the receiving end of a cease and desist notice, or even worse, an actual suit having already been filed.
Yep. All right, sir. Good to talk to you. Good to meet you, John Rizvi. Thank you very much for the education.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.